The humid air of a small village in Veracruz clung to Maria's skin as she stepped out of her abuela's house. The moon hung low, casting a silver glow over the river that whispered through the valley. Maria had heard the stories of La Llorona all her life, of the weeping woman who wandered the riverside, searching for her lost children. But she never believed. Not really. That night, Maria carried a basket of herbs to her neighbor, Doña Clara, a curandera who lived just beyond the river. Abuela had warned her not to go after dark, but Maria brushed off her concern. She was 18, almost an adult, and knew the difference between folktales and reality. As she crossed the narrow wooden bridge, the night grew unnaturally quiet. The usual chorus of frogs and cicadas fell silent, replaced by the faint sound of crying. Maria froze. It came from the riverbank below, a low, mournful wail. "It's just the wind," she told herself, gripping the basket tighter. But as she took a step forward, the crying grew louder, more human. "Quien anda ahí?" Maria called out, her voice trembling. The wailing stopped. The silence was deafening, pressing against her ears like the weight of the humid air. She glanced around, her eyes scanning the darkness. And then she saw it. A figure in white standing on the shore below. The woman's dress billowed in the breeze, though there was no wind. Her hair hung in tangled strands, obscuring her face. Maria's breath hitched as the figure turned slowly, revealing hollow, blackened eyes. "Mis hijos," the woman whispered, her voice both a sob and a hiss. Maria's legs moved before her mind could catch up. She sprinted across the bridge, the basket slipping from her grasp. Behind her, the cries turned into a piercing scream, one that echoed through the valley and rattled her bones. She didn't stop running until she reached Doña Clara's home, pounding on the door until it opened. "What happened?" Clara asked, pulling Maria inside. "La Llorona," Maria gasped. "I saw her." Clara's expression darkened, and she quickly bolted the door. "You mustn't speak her name," she said, lighting a bundle of sage. "Once she's seen you, she doesn't forget." Maria's heart raced. "But I didn't do anything." "It doesn't matter," Clara replied. "She seeks company in her grief." That night, Maria stayed at Clara's house, unable to sleep. She could still hear the cries echoing in her ears, feel the chill that had followed her from the river. The next day, she returned home, but things were never the same. Shadows lingered in the corners of her vision, and the sound of crying followed her wherever she went. Abuela grew worried, placing protective charms around the house, but nothing seemed to work. One evening, as Maria sat by the window, she heard the crying again. This time, it was right outside. She stood frozen, her breath shallow. The crying turned into whispers, calling her name. Slowly, against her will, she moved to the door. When she opened it, the figure in white was waiting. "Mis hijos," the woman whispered, reaching out with cold, bony fingers. Maria tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. As the woman pulled her into the darkness, the last thing she heard was her own voice, joining the mournful cries that would haunt the valley forever. The villagers found Maria's basket by the river the next morning. Of Maria, there was no trace. But on moonlit nights, when the air grows still and the river whispers through the valley, some say you can hear her crying. And if you listen closely, you'll hear her call your name.